Welcome back to Global Lens. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin have met yet again, this time for a virtual BRICS summit. While Prime Minister Modi skipped this virtual meeting, he did depute Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar instead. In his address, Jaishankar urged the BRICS leaders to find a resolution and to put an end to conflicts as it's hurting the economies. Adds that the Global South has witnessed deteriorating situation in energy and food security due to these conflicts and other uncertainties, thus calling for end of conflict and democratization of manufacturing and production. Further, he raised concerns around the state of the world. Jaishankar did not stop there. He adds that the multilateral system appears to be failing the world. While Jaishankar put forth India's point at the summit, Modi's decision to not attend the summit could be clearly calculated as a move to avoid antagonizing Washington during a delicate phase of negotiations. Even if that means showing India's less commitment to the BRICS bloc. This comes just days after Prime Minister Modi and Trump called each other friends. So which side is India on, and what's India trying to achieve with this? Let me go across to Brahma Chellaney, well-known strategic affairs expert and an expert on China relations as well. Mr. Chellaney, always a pleasure having you. First of all, how do you see India's presence at the BRICS summit? We were a part of the BRICS meeting recently. The Prime Minister attended the BRICS meeting in Brazil, but he was not here this time in this virtual meeting. What does the Prime Minister's absence indicate to you?
This virtual trade summit of BRICS was convened by Brazil to specifically discuss and coordinate a response to Trump's weaponization of tariffs. The fact that Xi Jinping and Putin both attended the summit, that elevated the summit profile and underscored the fact that Trump's weaponization of trade has clearly become an issue, not just weighing on BRICS, but weighing on the world in general. So in this context, and especially given the fact that India is a prime victim of Trump's weaponization of trade. So against this background, Modi's decision to skip the BRICS Virtual Trade Summit appeared to be a clear and calculated diplomatic move to safeguard India's relationship with the US, even at the cost of appearing to be less committed to the BRICS bloc. And of course, the question that arises is whether by not participating in the BRICS Virtual Trade Summit, whether he, that is Modi, weakened his hand or whether he strengthened his hand. That depends on whether you're taking a short-term view of the situation or taking the longer-term view of the situation. The fact is that protecting India's economic interests, if that is going to be a primary goal, then resolving the tariff crisis with the US has to be a priority. And apparently, this is what Modi is seeking to do. He's seeking to safeguard India's long-term economic interests, and his focus appears to be on resolving the tariff crisis by reaching a deal with the Trump administration. So in that sense, he thinks that not attending the BRICS Virtual Trade Summit was the right step.
Right. You know, on Minister Jaishankar's statements there, saying that in this era of global challenges, the multilateral system is failing the world. We need focus on stabilizing the international economy and the world order. The world is seeking a stable and predictable environment for trade and investments. How do you see this appeal to BRICS nations, and what will India try and do with BRICS countries now?
Foreign Minister Jaishankar's statement at that virtual BRICS summit was a very general statement. It did not address the issue for which this summit was convened by Brazil, which is to discuss and coordinate a response to Trump's tariffs. In fact, Jaishankar skirted that issue entirely. He spoke in general about conflicts in the world, about the need for a level playing field in inter-country trade relations, but he did not address the issue of how Trump, by weaponizing tariffs, by imposing secondary sanctions, singling out India by making India the first victim of a secondary sanctions. Trump is completely upending the international trade regime. He's doing things that nobody had anticipated. And this clearly has upset every nation's calculations, especially if you are an important economy, and BRICS is a grouping of important economies. Certainly, all the BRIC members are concerned about how tariffs are being weaponized, how secondary sanctions have become a foreign policy tool to reach trade deals. They are not just about trade. They are the trade deals that the Trump administration is seeking. The trade deal, for example, with India, it's not just about trade. He's also seeking to reshape India's foreign policy, as well as India's energy options. He's basically seeking to constrain India's strategic autonomy under the rubric of a trade deal. Right. That's why his weaponization of trade and the way he has, used tariffs as a tool, as a new sanctions tool, is a cause of international concern. And in that context, the very fact that BRICS was holding a specific and a special summit on trade issues centered on Trump's tariffs was significant by itself.
Right. I would also like to ask you about whether in the long term, and at least for the next 3 years of the Trump administration, would India reduce its engagement with the BRICS?
That's a very good question because, on one hand, if you look at the messaging from Tianjin by India, Modi went to Tianjin for the SCO summit, which was a change from his participation in the last two summits. For example, last year he did not attend the SCO summit, which was held in Astana, Kazakhstan. And year before last, India was the rotating head of the SCO. It was India's turn to hold the SCO summit. Instead, Modi downgraded the SCO summit to a virtual format. But this year, he chose to go to Tianjin SCO summit to signal to the US and to the West that India has other strategic options. And yet, just days later, he decides not to attend the BRICS Virtual Trade Summit. Now, that contradictory messaging is something that New Delhi will have to explain, because if India felt confident to be in Tianjin and to signal to Washington that dependence on Washington is not India's only option, then how come in a few days time, India is now apprehensive of antagonizing Washington? Didn't it think of that when Modi went to Tianjin, for example? So a signaling of any kind, geopolitical signaling in particular, has to be consistent.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Chellaney, for joining us with those very, very important views. Clearly, we're doing a geopolitical balancing act right now. There has been a positive opening with the Trump administration, and it seems that India wants to also find common ground in the days to come. Thanks once again for being with us here on Global Lens. Let's get you now the final cut for today. Carlos Alcaraz beat Yannick Sinner to clinch his second title at Flushing Meadows in what his coach called a near-perfect performance. The 22-year-old Spaniard has become the second youngest man behind Bjorn Borg to win 6 major singles. Alcaraz beat Sinner in 4 sets, helping him reclaim the #1 spot. He has returned to the top of tennis's mountain for the first time since September 2023. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Lens. Goodbye and many thanks for watching.